Welcome, everyone, to the NJ1ST podcast. My name is Ryan McDonald. I have a guest with me today, Joe Viso Jr. He is running for Republican Assembly candidate in the Legislative District 36. That's Northeast New Jersey, Bergen County specifically. I think there's one Passaic city over there. Thank you for joining us today. And we have some questions we're going to ask him, have a little discourse, and get to know himself more. A lot of people know him. He's been active in the scene. I've been keeping up with his campaigns even in 2021 and all the way through 2022 and into 2023. So, Joe, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for assembly.
Sure. How you doing, Ryan? Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. My name's Joe Viso. I've lived in Bergen County my life. Other than the first few years of my life, my father was in the Army. I guess I was an Army brat for years. But other than that, I've lived here. I grew up in Carlstadt mostly, and I've raised my family here. I've always loved it. It's a little small town close to Manhattan, and I started my business here 25 years ago. And I've employed a lot of people over the years. I've created a lot of jobs. Personally, I got involved because I just don't like the policies that are being put out there. Uh, my first reason was because of the vote. I needed to be a part of uh, something like my family. I'll put it this way: I was bitching so much that my family said, "Hey, Pop,
Mm-hmm.
do something, or it's time to shut up because we don't want to hear you, yelling at the TV anymore." So, and I'm the type of person that, like, I just believe that if you feel a certain way about something, stand up and do something about it, or step aside, and you don't really have the right to complain if you're not willing to at least go out and vote. At the very least, get out there and exercise your right to vote. See who the candidates are, take the time to meet them. So for me, the first thing is to make sure we have a secure vote. No matter who gets elected, whether it's Republican, Democrat, Independent, we just want to make sure that the vote is fair and free. And questioning elections, like it's been done since the beginning of time, right?
Right.
If there are problems, you want to find them, you want to fix those problems so that the whoever the rightful person is elected. But then beyond that, it just once I started a few years ago, I died. I had cancer. I'm a two-time cancer survivor. And the second time around, my organs gave out and my heart finally stopped. And I was in a coma for about a month, and I woke up paraplegic. I was unable to use my legs because of nerve damage. Thank God. After months, it did come back, but I didn't know if I was ever going to walk again. With that said, I had time during that period of time to really research politics. Like, I had too much time on my hands.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just realized that these policies, like taking parental rights away,
Right.
uh, what's going on in our school system. So there's a lot of things that I feel very passionate about. I didn't realize at the time I was a conservative. All I knew was that I'm an American citizen. I'm born and bred here. I love my country, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
like what I see going on. So I decided to get involved. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can relate in the same ideological aspect, which will continue for the next question. But you're a regular American, a regular New Jerseyan, just like the rest of us, not an entrenched party politician. You are able to have this transparent discourse, and you go in activism, door knocking. I've seen you out there. Then can't ask for a candidate to be any more just like that. That's the kind of person I want involved in politics and a person who I would vote for. And so we can go on to the first question I had for you, which was the I vote candidate evaluation. It had you as moderate. And it's funny, we can openly discuss this because I agree with you. You said just before you didn't know you were a conservative. I don't call myself a conservative. I've never called myself a conservative. Yet I
right,
find myself taking the same sides, maybe even being more conservative at sometimes than people who call themselves conservatives. So it's the same thing on the liberal side. There's liberals and people who say, well, you're not really a liberal. I'm really a liberal. It's the no true Scotsman fallacy. I'm
right.
more pure than yours and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So the I vote gave you a moderate.
Yeah.
Evaluation. And if you were to ask me, they probably did that just because they couldn't pin you in one corner, the left or the right. So they put you in the middle, not to say that you're a centrist necessarily, but to say that you don't fit in the political spectrum. Would you, how do you take their evaluation of you as a moderate?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? Look, I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm comfortable being down the, like it, and that's the thing is it shouldn't be about Republican, Democrat. I mean, look, there are parties, and it is a necessary evil, unfortunately, because if you just have one
Right.
party, how that goes, it's a mess.
Right.
Um, yeah, like I mean, I find myself being very libertarian,
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. And yeah, like I don't like putting myself in a box. I never did, but like you said, when you start looking at the issues, do you love your country? I love my country. I love my government. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I want that to be great. I want my country to be, I'd like it to be the same. Look, things are going to change, and as much as you want things
Yes.
to be the same, they're going to always change.
Well
But
said.
if you keep the core values, like our country's suffocating small businesses to the point where in another year or two, there's not going to be any more mom and pop shops. Maybe I'll have a coffee shop or, something like that. But the day that you can go to the store and pick things up are almost gone.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that really kills our whole system. And, like our state is a very pro union state. I went through the union. I was a local 3 electrician. At one point, I was an employer for 164. And I'm proud of my time in the union, but to a large degree, it suffocates businesses. Like when you want everything's going to be one union, you're never going to be able to have small businesses again. And right,
Right.
and kind of what the backbone of our country is built on is Americans that people come here from everywhere. I mean, right now they're trying to call it the most racist country in the
Mm-hmm.
world, and I laugh because there are people from everywhere dying to come over here because they know they can
Right.
still start a business, they can be what they want to be, and I want to keep that. Like we used to say the Pledge of Allegiance when we were young. I guess it show patriotism and pay homage to those who died for our rights. Like all of those people that look, I'll make some. I don't want to make fun of people, but there are some people that they look like they're insane and they're out there protesting. And the America is like our Constitution is the reason they get to do that. And freedom of
True.
speech is like what's happening. With freedom of speech is insane in our country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you watched RFK the other day. They
Yep, I
tried
did.
to him, right? And he's a Democrat. Like, come on. But it's just if you don't agree with anything on the left, you're labeled the far right.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, we need to get away from that. We need to start looking at the issues that plague our cities, our states, and address them. Like all of these cities where we're having the biggest problems have been run by Democrats for
True.
forever. And you have to at some point in time say, like what's the definition of insanity, right? Same thing over and over, expecting something different, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we need to make some changes and just kind of get back to the basics. And we need to open a dialogue. Like I went to speak with what this is so ironic. It's crazy. I was working for Billy Prempa's campaign, and on Juneteenth, we went to the celebration in Passaic, and we were handing out literature. And they let Bill Pascrell speak, but you had a young conservative who happens to be African American. They wouldn't let him speak on Juneteenth. So, and that same day,
Yeah.
I went to Bill Pascrell and I asked him, I said, Bill, can we at least have a conversation? Let's open some dialogue. Like, man, half the country is here, the other half is somewhere else. And there's a lot of us in the middle saying, you know, what the hell? And we
Yeah.
need,
I remember that day. It was Billy and you guys, and you offered an olive branch in public to try
yeah,
and maybe coax him into talking to you, but he wouldn't look, wouldn't talk, wouldn't do nothing. His people. I remember that happened. Yeah, it was just this year. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. And so, like, that needs to stop. Like, we
mhm.
need to speak with each other. Like, like, and then look what's happening in our schools. They're Murphy's
Right.
suing,
Let's talk about that.
right? Like, yeah, so like right now Murphy's suing to take parental rights away, so that if a child identifies as whatever, a cow,
Mhm.
the the school system they'll take a whole group of professionals and say, yeah, the kid's a cow. He needs,
Mhm.
let's send him in for surgery. He needs, um, and they're gonna help along with that. So like this is such a critical time. Like our kids will no longer be our children. It's going to be the state's children, and that's what they're trying.
Yeah.
Or yeah,
Joe Biden has released, or whoever runs his Twitter accounts has said stuff like that. Exactly.
yeah, yeah, and like I don't know, it's crazy. My daughter, I have four children, but my youngest is my girl, and she's 16, right?
Yeah.
And by next year, Murphy's going to have signed that law that will allow boys that identify as girls to use the girls' bathroom, and to me, that's insane. Like I don't want to alienate any group of people. It's not about that. Our school systems should be about school, about education. Everything else, like if you see a problem, it should be made aware. The family should be notified, and it's left at the family. Like the family, that's the family needs to deal with that stuff. Our school system is there to educate our children, teach them math, teach them how to read, teach them how to be proficient on computers. Let's like if we cut out all of these garbage courses that they put together, we could probably get our kids up to an associate's degree, and have them at a level where they can go to a place to
Skill. Yeah.
specialize. Yeah,
Right.
get,
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
they don't need all this stuff. Like it's about indoctrination. It's not really about education. So, and that's something that I is very important to me to change
Mm.
and stop that. We need to
Good.
support the family unit, not alienate it.
That's great to hear. I have a colleague over by you, I believe, Kai Collins, and she is working on school choice. I think there's actually two school choice initiatives on the independent or Republican right wing side in New Jersey that are going on in 2023. And as well, the Board of Ed meetings, right? We're seeing a lot of attention being brought to these Board of Ed meetings, whether it be from the librarians or the NJEA themselves, but our parents, our amazing parents that are stepping up,
God,
the men and the women. It might have been just the women at first, but now I gotta admit, you can't just say that anymore. It's the men and the women. The parents are standing up, and over in Bergen, there is Westwood. I have colleagues over there at Westwood. They're standing up. They are going to be passing, I believe, a resolution. And this is on the local level. In New Jersey, we have the home rule law allows us to govern the most local way possible. And if you were to be put in assembly, would school choice be something you would be in favor of?
100%,
It's
100.
interesting that we have to even find
Oh
these, right?
God, yeah, yeah.
I
Look,
have to find people who don't like school choice and who have something to say bad against it, and it's so hard. It is so hard, but it's good to
let
hear
them
that you're for it.
follow the kid. If the schools fail our children, and maybe to a certain, like it's got to be looked at, because I mean there are some valid points about it that people
Hmm.
bring up. Let the
Right.
money follow the children. If the school is doing crappy, like so many of them are, like I think it's like 20% is the actual rate of children that are ready to move on to like college.
Hmm.
Like we're passing people and they're not ready. But school choice will put a big challenge to that. They're going to make
Hmm.
these schools step up and clean their act up. And if they want money to continue to come into the district or into their school system, then these kids should be graduating, and not just graduating, they should
Right.
be proficient, right?
Right.
And the other thing is, like, I'd like to see emphasis and money be put towards the trades. There's so many, like myself, as a young guy, I came from an immigrant family, and I watched them go to work, either work real hard. My grandmother was a seamstress, and she worked for $1 a day or $1 an hour, and she bought a house in Lodi, New Jersey, in the 1950s, when after they came from Italy. And
Oh
then I
wow.
Yeah, and I watched other family members start businesses. So I knew that with in trades, I could start with a little bit of money, and I could start doing whether it was side work or whatever, but I could work towards a license that I can, for a relatively low amount of money, I could start a business. And I did that. And it not only, put money on my table, it put money on hundreds of people's tables over the years,
Right.
and so like we need more specialized schools. We don't need more insane professors that want to talk about crazy theories and like go ahead, you can have that, but if somebody wants to pay for it, then let them go and pay for it, but it shouldn't be
Yes.
on our kids. Give our kids classes that are going to actually give them skills, so that's
Yeah.
something that's important. That's so important to me.
I could talk for so much longer about the higher education, but duly noted for the K through 12, the fight's still going on. Joe Viso supports and even get involved with Joe Viso if you're a Board of Ed candidate. I believe the cutoff is the 31st. So if you're watching this, get involved. And also, probably when you were growing up here in New Jersey, there was a different culture around the Second Amendment and firearms. We
And
can segue on over to that, and I would like to talk about two things specifically. We'll start off with concealed carry, and the second one will be red flag gun laws. But concealed carry, I don't know how it was growing up in New Jersey. I follow a lot of NJ2A groups. I was involved with them a lot. I know what the Second Amendment means, obviously, and I know that the SCOTUS ruling extended that security of a firearm to our persons and protecting our family and our property, our liberty. So I understand all that. So are you in favor? And I know we talked about this off air, but are you in favor of concealed carry in New Jersey?
100%. I'm in favor of constitutional carry. The government
Excellent.
shouldn't be telling us whether we are allowed to or not to have guns. Like that's literally Second Amendment. They thought that's how important
Right.
they first, and that protects the First Amendment, right? And let's face it, it's not just to protect yourself from a robber or something like that. It's to protect you from a tyrannical government. Like when they hire
True.
an extra 887,000 IRS agents and they're going to arm them. What the hell? What are we
I
preparing for?
saw that.
You know what I
Like
mean?
half the people who saw that headline probably just read 87,000 IRS agents. Oh gosh, they're going to come after my money. And then half the people saw the video that they uploaded where it was training with guns and they were like,
Yeah,
yo, what are they doing? Yeah,
yeah.
it was, yeah,
And if you read the actual employment ad, it said that you must be willing to be armed and you know uh, something that's use deadly force or something like that. But
uniting
like
America's soul, Joe Biden.
right, and that's literally like I can see Giant Stadium from my second floor, and that fills the stadium. Right, that's a
Mhm.
sold out at Giant Stadium is the 87. I think it's 86,000, but like it's like 1,000
Oh, wow.
shy.
Geez. I didn't realize that.
And there's already something like 86 or 87,000 of them. So like, look, the IRS has a job to do, but they don't need to be armed to do it. That's uh, historically been an accounting thing, right? Like if you need to enforce things, you go to other agencies that
The
enforce.
sheriff, right?
Right, you go to the sheriff, and but I mean, at the end of the day, like good, uh, hardworking Americans, especially people they don't have any criminal records. Like there should be no problem. Like there should, I think so. I think we were talking about just the 87,000 IRS,
Yes.
and
The
I
Second Amendment.
in constitutional carry, 100%. The government shouldn't tell you whether you can or cannot own a weapon. Like obviously, there's certain people that have mental conditions that are violent offenders, right? You obviously you don't want them carrying guns, but when you have more good people with guns, it's so much more of a deterrent than when only the criminals have guns, because they're always going to get guns. Let's face it, gun laws only protect the criminal. It does not protect the good, hardworking United States citizens.
Mhm. And on that point of mental health, this will go towards the ERPO law, if you are familiar with it, the Extreme Risk Protection Order, also known as the Red Flag Gun Laws. Myself, I have no problem speaking openly about it. I have Tourette's. That's mental health considered. And I don't want to be barred from having my Second Amendment right. So there is a difference when people, just for viewers and everybody, educational purposes only, there's a debate whether or not people who have diagnosis of mental health should have the Second Amendment. And extreme risk protection orders are one of those things that can intervene, whether it be domestic abuse, whether it be mental health. And we have many Republicans in the country who do not agree with red flag gun laws. I don't agree with red flag gun laws because it violates Fourth Amendment rights, violates your Second Amendment rights. But we had Republicans in New Jersey in 2008 who voted yes for this. And I've been on their case every single year after it. People like Jay Weber, Robert Auth, Holly Shapizi, John Bramnick, Nancy Munoz, they voted for that 2018 ERPO red flag gun law. Now, bygones be bygones, because we have Senator Ed Durr in 2021, I think, or maybe 2022, right away sponsored a repeal of that ERPO bill. I'm just curious, yourself as an assembly person, would you yourself be in favor of repealing the extreme risk protection orders, red flag gun laws?
Yes.
Great. That's good to hear. Because I actually as well have a covert recording of the AG and his staff explaining how themselves, they know it's unconstitutional, but they're going through with it because they believe that they're doing the right thing. They themselves admit it. And as well, over the weekend, I believe the AG Platkin, who, while discussing the Board of Ed meetings, he actually brought up the red flag gun laws as well, and they're still utilizing it. So it's good to know that someone like yourself is a stand strong individual, America First patriot. And, you know, these bills have a lot of words in them, a lot of pork put into them, but it's good to know that you know the Second Amendment firmly.
And that's the other thing. Words that you're right. They use all of these words, and you know they mislead people. They try to, or you know, and they'll put certain little phrases in, and it takes your rights away, and people
Right.
don't see it on the cover. It'll look like one thing, but yeah, no, I'm against anything that takes our rights away, especially going after people with disabilities, right? Like, I mean, it's one thing if you have a violent schizophrenia, someone with schizophrenia or whatever. Like, I don't
past
even,
history.
you know what I mean?
I wouldn't
Right.
even sit right.
Someone with history of violence, right? Not even gun charges, like not even drug charges. Like, I think we go too hard on people for that. That's another thing. It's a whole other topic that,
Right.
you know, there's a lot of, you know, ins and outs of it. You know, like I think they use any excuse they can to strip your gun rights from you, and you know, disabilities, they take it from you if you're on medications. You know, they'll take it. Like they wouldn't. They were trying to take it from people that were on the medical marijuana. Like the, I tell you the truth, I'd almost rather
Bang
die.
or bong.
Bong, he's more safe with a gun than Hunter, who's in an 8 ball of coke, and you know, so.
And then on top of all that, there's the HIPAA laws that we try and protect, but they can, you know, it's
You know what?
not very good in my perspective.
No, that went right out the window with COVID. Like hip,
Yeah,
like
that
what's,
too. Right.
you know. But yeah, no, for sure, I am against that type of legislation. And especially like the red flag laws, like because that's what's going to happen. If you don't like your neighbor, they're going to say,
Yeah.
"Oh, you know, I saw him with a gun," you know, right? So anything that they can do to get somebody's house raided or something, like it's just crazy.
And we'll move on to the last, second to last topic. But in the covert recording I had, they explained that one of the cases they had was a neighbor reporting someone on Facebook because an 18-year-old went hunting with his dad. And so some people really don't like guns that much that they're willing to report their neighbor just for stuff like that. But we're going to leave that there because there's so many examples.
That's a perfect.
And
that's the, like, you're just teaching the kid to hunt. My uncle taught me to shoot when I was 6 years old. I started with just like a little pellet gun, and then by the time I was 10, I was shooting all different handguns and rifles, and you know, and I was thirsty for it. Like I couldn't wait to go with my uncle to shoot, and we would shoot
I
matches and things like that. You know, now I know how to handle a gun. It's so much
mhm.
more safer when people are educated about it. We get so many people that talk about guns and they really don't know about the weapons that they're talking about. Like they call
Mhm.
things assault rifles, right? But
Mikey
just
Cheryl, sheesh.
yeah, but yeah, I guess I'll leave it there because we could talk forever on that.
Exactly. And we're making good time. So, the second to last question, we touched on it before. You said what really got you motivated to run in the first place in 2021, even was election integrity. And here we have vote by mail, which we, I guess, have to use in order to win and then reform, I suppose. Someone in your area over there is actually probably I'll give him credit. He's probably the only person in the entire state in NJGOP, Robert Auth, the gentleman who I just mentioned before, in educating, pushing people, telling them you got to vote by mail if you want any chance at all. I myself see other avenues, and do my practice. You know, I'm active in going across the entire state, trying to get people motivated, trying to get them organized. But he's got a point. Their time is of essence. Not everybody is as active as I am, and a lot of people did not mind voting by mail. A lot of people did, but a lot of people didn't. So they're utilizing vote by mail. I'm sure you as well will
Have to.
encourage people to use vote by mail.
Yeah.
And you touched on you want voter ID, but is there anything else that you would like to touch
Well,
on about election integrity?
yeah. Well, let me just talk. I'll talk about vote by mail first
Sure.
because. And Bob Roth, by the way, I have to give him a ton of credit. He has spent a lot of time with our campaign, helping us out.
That's
He's
good.
walks in Passaic, which is way out of his district. You know, and he's done a lot to help get us set up so that we can canvass people properly. You know, and you know, I'd have to think about that gun issue. You know, I know he's very pro Second Amendment. I don't know
He
why
is.
that happened, but you know, with that said, with vote by mail, look, I don't like it. I don't want vote by mail unless you're disabled and you know you
Right.
your ID to get a ballot. But in order to change that, we need to take the majority. It's here to stay until we get the majority, and then we can,
Correct.
you know, bring it back to voting in person. Like if you don't think enough about your vote to get off your ass and go down to the damn polling place, like should you really be making the decision on who's running our country? Like, you know, like yeah, I believe everybody has the right to vote and should use their vote, but go to the polls. But with that said, we won, like, you know, in my team, we won election day in 2021, and then we lost by vote by mail, right?
Mm,
And so the Democrats have a very strong vote by mail. They have a very strong harvesting program where they have enough people going after
that's
those,
right.
right? So what our team did this year is we've been blessed to have the most amazing volunteers. Our people are out there every day. I think they're even out there right now as we speak, and they're trying
Wow.
to their people to vote by mail. And the reason, like for me, like in Bergen County where I'm at, I know my Republican towns at least, we have cameras on the boxes, right? And there's more uh transparency when it comes to that, except the count, which is where I'm trying to get my eyes on. I
Poll
want to
watchers, right?
get yeah, but you know, so far, like I know we do have our eyes on that whole process here. There were some parts of Passaic in 2021 where we had districts that didn't open in time, and then they closed way late. You know, I don't know if that's to bust people in or do whatever it is they do.
Mm.
But we gave them their first challenge in probably 30 years. You know, I don't think they ever lost election day, to my knowledge, and
And
so
even likewise in Mercer, I think that even though that nothing really came about of it, they were challenged. The county officials were finally challenged that it was a complete catastrophe, a disgrace what happened in Mercer County.
yeah, yes, it was, and you know, and that's the kind of thing where like it's hard because on election day, if you don't have a lawyer on site when it
Mm,
happens, it's like the next day, forget about it. And we need to do something about that so that we can investigate these problems and try to resolve them, and not just, we can't just put a blind eye to problems and say it and think it's going to go away. It's only just going to get worse. So,
Mhm.
you know, but yeah, like for me, like I know in Bergen County it's pretty good. I know there are places that there's problems, and there's no doubt about it. And it's an area where, you there can be problems. Like if you give somebody time to count the vote by mails, right? Like
Mhm.
they already have the number. They know how many people already voted in all of the towns in person. And now you're saying give me 2 or 3 days to count the vote by mails. That's a problem, and we need to fix that. Like I think we need to open the vote by mails before the in person, right? Like that day, so there's only limited amount that come in the next couple of days.
I
You can
see.
keep an eye on it, right? So
Right.
not so somebody can't fudge a whole bunch of like big amount.
That's that's exactly how they did it in the gangs in New York time too, right? They've stuffed the boxes because they had enough time to do it. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can end on this last question because it'll be perfect time for people to view this whole thing. Do you and your running mates, the Oriema brothers, do you have any legislation that you're bringing with you, or is there any legislation that you have in your mind or that you know already that you want to vote on? Or
Well, pretty much everything we just talked about. The school choice, and want to stop schools. We want to, we're fighting for parental rights. Or I don't want to. Our parents can't be stripped of their child's rights. The school
Mhm.
cannot have the right to bring your child to a doctor or allow that. It's just they're getting too lives. And I want to bring forth legislation to just bring back common sense schooling, educate our kids, like we discussed. Um, Voter reform. I want to bring back in person voting. That's so important. There's problems with every system of voting that we have, but in person voting, uh, in
Mhm.
person voting, to me, is the way it needs to be. And we need to get rid of this technology, with the computer. Like I think it needs to almost go back to, you present your ID, you get a ballot, only a certain amount of them, and like it can be arranged so it's a fair election.
Mhm.
And like what Ed Durr legislation, like Ed Durr brought up for the Second Amendment. We need to bring. I'm a big proponent for constitutional carry, and so that's important to me. Just all of these issues that we're talking about. Like the legislation, obviously it's going to take some time to craft it, but we have so many brilliant people working with us. We can dot the i's and cross the t's, and we need just more transparency with all of it. And it's hard to bring legislation until you're in office. Some people will bring a plan. We have a plan, we have a game plan, we have certain areas that we want to attack, but until we're in there and we see where the checkbooks are and we see where, you know where the all of the money is going to, like, we have a certain amount that we can do now, but you can spend weeks digging into
Mhm.
that. And we will dig into that, but we're going to support all legislation, anything that's pro parental rights, pro. Uh, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I don't want the government telling me to put something in my body.
Mandates, right?
Right, especially when they change the definition of what a vaccine is to fit, right. So these kind of things, we're going to work on legislation to protect our citizens so that they can make a decision for themselves. The government has never made good decisions. I don't
Mhm.
want decisions for me. I want them out of my life as much as I can keep them at an arm's length, protect our borders, keep our streets safe, and leave me alone, right? Stop spending my money and your money and all of our money. So, I want to make New
Perfect.
York a place where you can live, where you can retire, and not have to put every dime you have towards the tax bill on a house that you spent 30 years paying off, right? Like, we need to provide, whether it's assistance or just cut off taxes at 65, like,
Mm-hmm.
or something, cut them in half.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a system. There's a lot of things that we can do. We've been throwing around so many good ideas. I'm blessed to have just such a great team, and I'm open to hear everybody's ideas. And I'm glad. Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate you taking
Hey,
this.
my man, thank you so much for coming on. You did perfect. You answered awesomely. Joe Viso, thank you for coming on. And where can
Well,
people find you and your campaign?
oh yes, www.ld36army.com. That's our website. You can volunteer. You can donate. Please donate. We're so close. We're so close. Oh, just before we get off, the national GOP just ran a poll. I think you saw it. They have us within 2 points right now. They polled 2,500 people. So
Really?
neck and neck, we're in a virtual tie here in our district. We can put this across the finish line, but we need people to come out and go and vote on November 7th, or register to vote by mail. Because let me say one thing about the vote by mail.
Mm-hmm.
People that will tell you that they're gonna vote, right, and only 50% of those people generally do go and vote. People that register to vote by mail, more than 80% of them are likely to send in a ballot, a filled out ballot. So that's kind of the push for it right now, right? We got to beat that. But anyway, I don't want to take any more of your time. I could go for hours.
Yeah, I hope we can do this again, and I can as well. Thank you for joining, guys. Subscribe to the NJ First podcast. Follow at NJ First at Ryan McDonald USA. Please join Joe Viso and all the other Republicans, Independents, America First, NJ First. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much.